In 1995 I went on a field trip to Hertfordshire, organised by Lionel Beer of the Travel and Earth Mysteries Society, known as Thames. I'd taken my video camera to keep a record of the trip, but strangely it wasn't till now, 2014, that I did lay mapwork in the area. A lay skirting the southern edge of Berkhamsted Castle was found, that not only further evidence that Roman roads were based on the lay system, but also goes to Camlet Moat in North London, known as London's Camelot. This is the only contender for Arthur's Camelot to actually bear that name, and is at the centre of a wide area called North, South, East and West Camelot. Although a fairly small moated enclosure, walls over 5 feet thick have been found, and evidence of a huge drawbridge. The earliest mention of Camelot here was in 1439, 40 years before Malory's Morte d'Arthur. There are 3 other lays going through Camlet Moat, found by Chris Street, who researched the history and other implications of the site. 2 of them are part of the Barnet Triangle, an isosceles triangle of lays associated with the Earth Stars pattern over London. This triangle is formed by Camlet Moat, Monk and Hadley Church and East Barnet Church. The other lay is a May Day sunrise line, going from the moat through the Trent Park Obelisk, Whiting's Hill and St John's Church, Stanmore. Three lays were found skirting the straight edges of Berkhamsted Castle. The one on the southern edge, extended eastwards, is coincident with about 10 miles of the Roman road Akeman Street. It also goes through St Mary's Church, North Church, famous as the burial place of Peter the Wild Boy, which we visited on the trip. The one on the eastern edge runs along Castle Street to Berkhamsted Parish Church, which we also visited. The northern edge one meets the eastern at the Moat, and continues eastward to the Roman Theatre at St Albans, which we visited again. There is a third lay passing through the Moat, making it a lay centre. This is at a shallow angle to the last, and goes through the ancient St Mary's Church at Hemel Hempstead, which we visited, as well as St Albans Cathedral.
Something like that. So I said we'll come to the station, and if we don't get you on
Quite a main station.
No one knows why it was built in a saucer instead of on top of a hill. Presumably it was just chance that there was water supply. The only fact that maybe had something to do with it is that William of Normandy, after the Battle of Hastings, chickened out. He was frightened to attack London directly, and he marched from the south-east right the way round to the north-west of London, crossed the Thames at Wallingford in Michael Caine's back garden, but he wasn't there at the time. And he threatened London from the north. And the fact is, he stopped the night at Berkhamsted.
So they rushed out and
surrendered the crown, and then he went on into London.
Yeah.
He left behind his brother, the Count of Mortain, with his troops to suppress the territory, obviously. And it was him who, with all his workforce and his troops and all the local peasants, dug these original earthworks, shoved all the earth up there to make the man-made moat, and built a wooden castle on this site in 1066. This chap appeared 100 years later in 1150 odd to replace the wooden castle that was falling down. And then it carries on in your history leaflet. But what is missing today is all of that. Because when the railway came through in the 1800s, Nothing stands in the way of invested capital. Never did and never will. Even today, if there's money behind it, you just get out the way. So, zoomp, right through there.
So we've lost this
So
tower.
we sort of come in from there.
You've come in from the gateway here, and you've come up to the cottage here. That inner gateway, that chap, stood in the hole in the wall over there. The remains of this great hall and chapel is over there, at the bottom of the cottage garden. All the rest comes into focus.
They've got a well here.
Oh, right.
He's into wells.
Well, I went up to St John's Well Lane, but I think it's disappeared underneath the post
Beg your
office.
pardon?
Sorry, he's finished now.
Are you interested in all the border castles in Wales? What I was just about to show you is this. Again, after 20 years, I found an in-depth study instead of a skeleton of a leaflet. If anybody is interested enough to want one of these, they're £2.95. It's been produced by this guy Renfrey, who's researched all the border castles in Wales. And in several of those, the Count of Mortain was deeply interested, after he'd done this one.
According to my version of history, he was even a nastier piece of work than King William.
It's true.
Subsequently, the castle was owned by various of the Tudors, various wives of Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour. Who was the other one I said? Catherine of Aragon. But it fell into disuse at the end of the Tudor period, equally for reasons that aren't explained, but maybe the upkeep was just too much and they just couldn't be bothered to maintain it anymore.
It belongs to the Duchy of Cornwall.
Yeah, it now belongs to the Duchy of Cornwall. Care of English heritage. So that was... Little coot chick over there.
On a nice summer's evening, we can sit outside. Oh no, I was going to say on a nice summer's evening.
So it's all spicy.
And inside the church is a brass to his memory. He was found wandering wild without speech in a forest near Hanover in 1725. So he lived to a good old age. And after George I heard about it whilst on a visit, he took him back to England. Despite all efforts to teach him, he was placed in the care of farmers in Northchurch until he passed away in 1785. The church itself has pre-conquest walls to the nave, although the original Saxon tower is gone, now replaced by a central tower of the 15th century. There is an unremarkable 15th century font, but a fine chest circa 1500 with fine carvings, which is Flemish. So if we can get access to the church, probably worth having a quick look. Yes, we'd like to the brass relating to Peter.
Peter, it says, known by the name of the Wild Boy, having been found wild in the forest of Hertfordshire near Hanover in the year 1725. He then appeared to be about 12 years old. In the following year he was brought to England by the order of the Queen, the late Queen Caroline, and Albert Masters were provided for him by proving incapable of speaking or of receiving any instructions. A comfortable provision was made for him by Her Majesty at a farmhouse in this parish, where he continued to the end of his inoffensive life. He died on the 22nd day of February 1785, supposed to be aged 72.
It's not as large.
Say along New Road?
No, we're on this road
Yeah,
that goes
sorry,
through
no,
the village.
From the castle, you say along New Road.
Well, I'll take them.
Do you want to get back to the castle?
No, I think probably it's better not to go to the castle because of all the roadworks in the middle.
Just that we
I think
came another way.
If we can turn right before we get to all the roadworks and go up round the back.
I've got the other half of the
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, there now.
Right, castle's over there. Oh, that's going right away.
Well, it's that road, that's the way we came, which avoids the town centre.
Ah, good. Yes, that's probably what I'm looking for. So that will take us round the castle, and then I want to go up here.
Yeah, we're up that way.
I want to go up here, and when we get up to that T-junction, we're going to turn sharp right, and as you can see, one of the ditches goes across there, and then back round there. If we can't see anything there, or if there's nothing to see, whatever, that says unfenced, unhedged, so we should be able to look straight across at it, if that's right. The dotted lines mean unhedged, unwalled. And then sort of go round back that way, and then if we can't see anything there, we can see that bit there. And then what I would like to do is to go, I think probably the easiest way is to go through Potton End to Water End, back down here. In architectural interest.
Really?
The chancel, about 1150, even earlier, is unique among parish churches in the county in having a vaulted roof. The central tower carries a leaded spire, restored in the 1980s, which is why it looks a bit recent, on round-headed Norman arches. The nave arcades consist of 6 pairs of similar arches, surmounted unusually by contemporary discreet restoration of the interior in 1880 and 1980 has not diminished the grandeur of this fine church. Plenty of amphitheatres around the UK, but this is one of the best preserved actual ordinary theatres, and probably the only one that's open to the public at St Albans.
And this is part of Lord and Lady Burns' estate.
Gorhambury estate.
Gorhambury's up there, right? And that's 10 years old, but that's Lord Verulamium, that's his wife. Their ancestry goes back to Sir Francis Bacon, whose tomb lays in the church across the road there.
And the River Ver, has that always been called the River Ver?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware.
Back into prehistory. Chester, Camelot, Chester.
St Albans Cathedral.
Very nice. All branded £25. Couldn't believe it.
So he was expecting you. He's been here at 12 o'clock.
I forget it.
I don't know his name. He didn't tell me his name. But we had a very interesting time because I'd been to Peru over the Nazca line, so we had a long chat about, about that.
Yes. Sit on the seat.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right, by all means. Yeah. You know all why it's called St Albans. I generally start with that.
Well, it's St Alban, I suppose.
You don't know. You don't know, right. Well, he was the first Christian martyr. He was, we think that he was beheaded in 209, but of course, first of all, before I say anything, I mean, I read all these books, and then next week I read something and it says something completely different. So what I give you is sort of the general opinion. I have been vetted by the museum, although I'm an honorary member. I'm not paid for doing this. I'm all right. So you don't mind what I say, right? But this was when the Christian religion was taking root in England, and the Alban was friendly with a priest called Amphibulus, and he lent Amphibulus his cloak so that Amphibulus could escape. Alban was captured and he was tried, and I like to think that he was tried here in the Roman theatre, and he was sentenced to be beheaded, but he couldn't be beheaded within the city walls because he was a Roman citizen, so they had to take him up to behead him by the abbey, and that's why the abbey became a centre of pilgrimage afterwards. So that's why we called St Albans. But now just a bit about the Roman theatre. First of all, this is the third largest Roman city in England, after London and Cirencester. And it started about AD 43 and went up to 400. And it was more or less a market town with lots of, villas and things. But you need a lot of imagination when you see the Roman theatre. So I don't know whether you'd like to just have a look at this and make it a bit more interesting for you. We think that, in fact we know pretty well, that it's the only one in England with a stage. There are other ones in England, but ours is the only one with a stage. As you can see if you wander around. That's right, you've just got, that's a reconstruction of a pillar. The top is original, and we think that there were 4 of them. You can see how tall it was, and the people used to come in through these 3 entrances or up the steps. Now, how they find out how tall it is because of measuring the foundations. And they feel that, they say that at first it was used for more or less, before the stage was enlarged, it was quite small at first, so it would be used for variety performances and things like that. And then later it would be used for plays, mostly comedies, because the Romans didn't like tragedies like the Greeks. They liked comedies and slapstick and so on. So, as I say, first of all, more like an arena, and then used as a proper theatre, and then they think in the end that some of these were taken away and it was used more like an arena again. So it had sort of 3 stages of being used. Never had a cover on, always open air, and just wooden seats for people to come and sit on. They think that it would have seated about 2,000, something like that, when the whole city was 4,000 people roughly. And you didn't have to pay. You had little sponsored discs have been found, sort of sponsored like so-and-so the butchers or local branch of Marks and Spencer's and so on, and you went and got your ticket so you came free. They had strolling players, they think, who went to other sort of places. They would set up, you know, and play in a town that hadn't got a theatre like ours, so they think that these strolling players went from one place to another, not a resident company.
Would they have been Roman?
So, they would have been Romano-British, but you know, because they were very, the British were never sort of more or less at war with the Romans. They soon integrated with them, so there would be quite a lot of, you know, intermarriage and so on. This was never a garrison town, you see here. It was a little fort at the beginning, but it was a residential town. That's why we've got a lot of nice mosaics. Have you been in the museum?
Yeah.
We've got some lovely mosaics in there and some wall plaster. So it was a very important sort of market town, you know, for people bringing their produce in. We had lots of villas round and about, and people brought their produce in here to sell. We had a market over there. So does that give you an idea about, is that the sort of thing you want?
Yeah, when was this sort of discontinued, do you think?
About 400.
Yeah.
Yes. It was actually built about 140. Then it was enlarged, and then 300 it was at its height, and then 400 it had gone. So it's quite a, you know, a long span of time from, you know, from 140 to 400. Yes, quite a long time. And your friend said he found very, you know, could have great feet. You know, he got his whatever you call it.
Sticks.
Yes, he got his
Leys,
stick.
yeah.
Yes, that's right. And he said he could feel it coming across.
Was he a short guy?
Yes.
Oh.
Was that Chris?
Yeah.
Is it Chris?
Well, fancy that.
Did he come on bike, did he?
Oh no, I don't know how he came. He just was here at about 12 o'clock looking for. And then when I turned up at 2:30, he'd come back again to see if you were here.
Oh dear.
But
I might come back.
and now he's going. He's going to find you. He's going to find you at Puffley for tea. Is that right?
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
His company.
Yes. So at any rate, yes.
Why Verulamium?
Pardon?
Why Verulamium?
Verulamium.
Verulamium.
Verulamium. Because of the tribe that were here before, you know, before the Romans came, they took that name. You see, it's a tribal name. Yes. Right.
It was established in the early years of Roman occupation, possibly AD 50, and although devastated during Boudicca's rebellion in AD 61, continued to flourish until the end of the Roman era. The site was extensively excavated by Sir Mortimer Wheeler in the early 1930s. 1930s?
Yes, that's right. The museum's 39.
More recently by Professors Frere and Manning.
Yeah.
With certain exceptions, it is now once more covered by the turf of the Civic Park and sports pitches on the west side of the River Ver. How, presumably the name Ver dates back to total prehistory,
right. That's
does
before.
it?
That's right. That's the river. Yes, down here, the Ver. That's right.
Right.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it was. The
Roman theatre I've just found a bit.
Yes.
AD 150 with later alterations
that's
lies west of the museum facing on the old walking.
That's right.
The remains
Yes.
include substantial foundations within the stage area and the layouts of gangways and tiered seats which constituted the auditorium. A theatre of this kind would have been used for staged performances and perhaps animal fights,
Yes,
but not for the spectacular contests characteristic of the larger Roman amphitheatres.
No, that's what we, you know.
Thank you, Shire.
Yes.
Guys.
Where's it from? Which one's that? Oh, yes, that's correct. Correct. Yes, you do read such, you know, conflicting things, but I would agree with, you know, pretty well all of that. It's a pretty good, you know, thing. So has that given you a bit of an idea about, you know, what you wanted to find out?
The tribe.
Yes.
What were they actually called? The tribe.
Well, the actual tribe, the name of the settlement was Verulamium, but the tribe of the Catavaloni, and they lived up.
Yes.
They lived up here. Which way did you come in? Because if you came past Waitrose, that's where they Catavaloni were. Did you come?
We've come from Hemel.
Come to him. Yes, you came past. You come down this hill, haven't you?
right.
Then Blue House Hill.
Blue House
well, you
Hill,
came to a roundabout at the top, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, if you'd gone along the roundabout that way, the King Harry Lane, that's where the settlement was up there, by
Are there
Waitrose.
some parts of that settlement still left?
No, there's hardly anything that you can, you know, come across now. The only thing is that they did find the only time you see nowadays they get to do any excavating is if there's, say, a big house being pulled down, and they, you know, to build smaller ones, which is the general trend at the moment, isn't it? Then the people from the museum are allowed to go in before it's all demolished. And they have found, if you do have time to go in the museum, it's well worth it. They have found a Roman coffin up there, because the burials, you see, were outside the city walls. So if they found a wonderful lead coffin with patterns of the shell, which was the pilgrim's mark and so on, and that is absolutely wonderful. And they've made a video of the fellow they think was in this coffin, because they can tell that he had arthritis, and not that one toe was longer than the other, but things like that they really can find out. They've sent it up, I think it was to Manchester, his skull up, to you know, work out what he actually looked like. So that's what they're finding at the moment. They haven't found anything sort of earlier than that, but they have found these coffins and
we were trying to have a look at the ditch at
Grimsdyke.
Above Berkhamsted Castle towards Potton End.
Yes, yes.
Is that the same tribe, or, I mean...
I don't know about it over there.
I mean, there's lots of ditches around this area.
Yes, right. Have you been to Grimsdyke yet? Wheatamstead?
Well, we're going to go up to the ancient Britain.
Yes,
that's just
where
up the road.
Beach Bottom.
Yeah, Beach
that's
Bottom
right.
Dyke.
Yes, Beach Bottom, that's right, yes. And Grimsdyke is just further along.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where's the best, I mean, should one drive right along the road, or can one see it from the ancient Britain?
You don't need to go far along. You can mostly get a pretty good idea from the ancient Britain, but you do need to go, yes, it would be worth going along a little way.
Right, because I saw on the map that you can drive along and then Valley Road, is it?
Yes, Valley Road turns off to the, you know.
But it's better to go to Valley Road, isn't it?
Yes, I think it's worth going along.
Enough,
yes, it's worth going along there and having a look at it.
Where exactly is Watling Street?
Watling Street. Well, it came into the Roman city up. Oh no, you said you came in. You didn't come down the other lane. No, it's over that way, and it came straight through the city and went out over here to Chester. You see.
Was Watling Street Edgware Road?
Yes, the beginning of Edgware. Yes, the beginning of it was Edgware Road. That's right. Yes.
Edgware Road, Marble Arch.
Hold on, I've got a bit of a map here.
It's not on where this road is now, then, is it?
This bit, isn't this bit the original Roman road? Not
the original Roman road is up here. That's what's called Watling Street now, further over.
You're not pointing to the road, are you?
This is the. Sorry, here we are.
There's a crossroads just down here.
There's a little road here. There was the Roman road was where the telegraph poles are, roughly, and then the one now is further over. Hold on, it's this way round. No, it doesn't show you. This just shows you what the Roman was like. But this is the Gorhambury Drive, which was the Watling Street of those days. You see, much lower here.
This is the drive for the estate.
That's right, up here. But the Watling Street now is further over. Is it the A5? They keep altering it, don't they, the numbers? Is it the A5? Well, that's that one. You go up here to the roundabout and then you turn left. That's the Watling Street. So they've altered it slightly, you see.
But at the time it came right through
here? The time it came right through the middle of the time it came right through the middle here. Can you see London Gate?
Yeah.
Came right through here, and right out the other side. But now, you see, it's altered and it comes down the hill here, and then out this way. Now, you see, because when the how that happened was when they built the Abbey. You see, they wanted all the pilgrims to go there amongst it and spend their money, you see. So they diverted the road, you see. So the road went
ever since.
So the road went down there and then up there, you see. But this is how
you would have gone right through this field, the Roman times then.
Yes, that's right. Yes, well, you can see here. You can't see what it says, but did you come past where it says Triumphal Arch?
Yes.
That's where the Triumphal Arch went over the road, you see. Just there, and it came up here. I think it was a little bit further. Some people say it was went a little bit further, and in fact I think it must have gone through the Roman arch there and then down that way a little bit and then straight on. There's a lot of controversy about exactly where it was, but I think it's roughly towards the telegraph poles.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want it too far down the valley because it'd be getting marshy down there.
Yes, oh no, it wouldn't have been. But as I say now, you see, the main road comes in from the Edgware Road up to what's called the King Harry, then down into the town of St Albans, and then it turns left and comes out along here. So that's how it does it now, you see. Bypasses this completely. because they didn't want them coming down here. They wanted them to catch them coming near the to buy all their candles and you know, and things by the, you know. So up here's to the cathedral, you see.
And the bits of bone.
Yes, that's right, that's right. So it went down there and up there, you see. But this is where this is definitely where it used to be, out towards Chestergate. You see, London Gate to Chestergate. Yes. Where are you off to next then? Oh, you're going to see the
ancient Britain.
Oh yes, the ancient Britain. Yes, they are. Yes, have a look by all means.
Right.
Yes.
Somebody going to take our photograph on the stage?
It's, and we don't think it was a shrine for long, if it ever was. We think it really was a cellar then.
Yeah.
So you've just got the outline of the, you can see the outline of the house, can't you? And this is where the shops were. Well, it doesn't give you any idea really, does it? But the finds in the museum are wonderful. So
There's an outline there, isn't it?
That's the outline. They've got 3 shops. There's the carpenters. There are more than that all the way along here. And this notice here says unfinished excavations, and to my knowledge it's been there 20 years without anything being done, you know. Which is an awful pity. We have to get to, I think we should have something for the Millennium Fund, you know. Really, it's such a lot underneath that still needs, you know, doing, but it's very expensive. And
what's the hub?
Fun? That's all the excavation material from these, you see. That's just all the soil, you know.
That's very misleading, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You see, there ought to be some. There's no explanations over here at all, you see, because it just belongs to the Earl of Verulamium, and all he does is just take the money on the door, you see. He doesn't, and keeps it mown, you know.
This pays the grass cutters' wages.
This hasn't, I think this is the first time it's been done this year. He was looking very smart today. It generally looks terrible. But as I say, it still needs a lot doing to it. But I don't know whether you get any feelings here. Your friends.
As I say, it's disguised by the road. It actually ran back to the pub. I don't know if you saw the green bit at the start by the pub. But I gather this is the best place for a quick look. It consists of a massive ditch 27 metres wide and 9 metres deep, with banks on both its north and south sides. It is visible for about 1.5 kilometres along the north edge of St Albans. It is most likely linked to the Devil's Dyke at nearby Verkhamsted. We can see a good example of ditch there as well, and is presumably of the same late Iron Age date, 10 to 50 BC, and part of the whole dyke system running between the River Ver at St Albans and the River Lee at Verkhamsted. The ditch system in the area probably reflects the occupation of the region by the powerful Verulami tribe, sorry I don't know if I pronounced that one, in the centuries immediately preceding the Roman invasion in AD 43. So here we are. Suddenly you find there's a huge great ditch. Right, so some of the guidebooks describe this as North Mims, but it's actually Welham Green, and Welham Green's main claim to fame is it's a sign off the A1M. And apart from Lunardi, I think it has absolutely no claims to fame whatsoever. But this is the spot where the first touchdown of the first manned flight took place in the UK, or in England, back in 1784 on the 15th of September. There had been a previous, in fact I think there had been 2 previous attempts to launch balloons from the Chelsea hospital grounds, which were unsuccessful, and as a result of them being unsuccessful, and for those days very large numbers gathered around in the 18th century, like we could have been talking about crowds of 100,000, which was a lot of people back then, they sort of tore the balloon to shreds. So when Vincenzo Lunardi, who was a young Italian diplomat and a bit of a sort of wag-about town, rather sort of dashing type, he thought, oh yeah, let's get into ballooning, that will sort of bring in the girls, which it did of course. And of course ballooning then was only in its infancy, because only the previous year the first hot air balloon, the Montgolfier Brothers Superior Quality wallpaper balloon, was launched, and then only 10 days later the can't remember their name now, Richard Brothers hydrogen balloon was launched from the Tuileries in Paris. It was probably beginning of October 1783. So for somebody else to already sort of getting in on the act only a year later, it shows how fast, you know, people getting involved. The hydrogen balloon in Paris was made out of a form of rubberized silk, which I jokingly remark at the time had an illegal and immoral use in France. But I've checked it out, and Lunardi actually used a hydrogen balloon which he launched from London. It wasn't made out of rubberized silk, it was made out of oil silk, which sounds like an interesting thing, because the problem is keeping the gas in, not sort of leaking out too quickly. So obviously a lightweight oiled silk was the answer. The big problem, of course, was to produce enough hydrogen to fill a balloon that would carry, and at the time they were hoping to carry his sponsor as well. And they had a crowd of about 100,000. They managed to persuade the captain of the Royal Artillery ground in the city. Sorry, I have to look this one up. Moorfields Artillery Ground. You've heard of Moorfields in the city, right? By sort of contributing to a charitable fund and the pension fund, and sort of guaranteeing any destruction would be paid for, they were persuaded to use that ground. So it took them best part of the night and quite a lot of the day to generate enough hydrogen. In those days you generated hydrogen by having a lot of iron filings in a wooden barrel. Probably had quite a lot of wooden barrels, and you poured in very carefully sulfuric acid and water, and sort of had a pipe coming out of the barrel, because of course the gas would be coming off the iron filings quite fast, and sort of piping it across the balloon. So the whole thing was a bit tricky and a bit slow, and if you were too long, the crowd got a bit excited and wanted their money back, type of thing. Anyway, he was going to take off with his sponsor, but they sort of looked around at the crowd and thought, well, yes, perhaps we better get on with this. So Vincenzo Lunardi took off on his own. His sponsor was a friend by the name of George Biggin, who enjoyed a reputation as being a patron of the arts. Biggin, no. And they made what they call a hydrogen balloon of the Charles type, after the French hydrogen balloon, which was called the Charles type. very practical sort of basket underneath it, unlike some of the more elaborate ones that have been tried earlier. The balloon actually had a diameter of 34 and a bit feet for what it's worth, and a volume of 18,000 cubic feet. It had taken all the previous night and the whole of the morning to fill the balloon, and 100,000 or more restless and impatient spectators rendered the task all the more difficult. There was no way of predicting how they might react if kept waiting too long, so a decision was made that Lunardi was to ascend alone in the balloon, which was not quite filled, and leave Biggin behind. He was accompanied by a dog, a cat and a pigeon. I'm not quite sure what the pigeon was for, but it's quite possible it was when he landed he could sort of put a message on the pigeon and send it back. It's the only explanation I can think of. When he got here, it was a very cold day, and he was recording sub-zero temperatures while he was in the air. And when he got here, the cat was absolutely frozen, so the cat was let out and given to a local lady to look after. He had a pair of oars, like large paddles, in his gondola, on the assumption that you could actually control the direction and sort of passage of the balloon. Of course, it's generally recognised now that these were totally useless, and in fact one of the oars broke almost as soon as he started, but he was convinced that they were helpful in reaching South Mimms, which is some 13 miles north of London, where he took off. He landed at 3:30 in the afternoon, divesting himself of his remaining ballast, and released the catch, which was now quite benumbed with cold. Though he stayed at altitudes below 1,000 feet, he registers temperatures as low as minus 16 degrees centigrade, it says here. That sounds damn chilly to me. Right, so having sort of released the ballast and the cat, he then took off and carried on to a place called Standon Green End, which is north of Ware and near to Standon off the A10 on the way to Royston. The stone there is much more elaborate, and there's a sort of brass plate that you lift up with a rather sort of flowery tribute underneath it. Anybody who's heard me lecture on UFOs will have heard me read about it. Some 30 minutes later, this was after Welham Green, he landed at Standon Green End, which is just a sort of fields out in the middle of nowhere in particular. Quite a successful landing. The scared farmers at first refused to approach this devilry until a girl, who was obviously, oh, there's a handsome looking chappie in a fine frock coat, got hold of one of the ropes and sort of held the thing down, because I mean, when you land, that's half the problem. If you jump out, the balloon sort of takes off. You don't want that happening. And by her valour, the local farmers were persuaded to come along and give a hand as well. And when he took off, King George III, the Prince of Wales was actually there at Moorfields Artillery Ground and sort of tipped his hat and sort of, you know, like, well done fellas, and everybody else in the crowd sort of also went like that. So as I say, this is the first aerial flight landed in the UK. Oh, and there's a little bit of a throwaway item, because his sponsor George Biggin had a girlfriend who was an actress. She was a very attractive actress, but she was a little bit on the weighty side, because she weighed in at about 200 pounds, so she wasn't sort of the ideal balloon passenger. Anyway, eventually she got her chance on the 13th of May the following year, 1785. 29th of June following year. George Biggin was able to fly with Laetitia Sage. The trip lasted for an hour, and from that time on, Laetitia liked to be known as the first British female air traveller. Lunardi went on to make various other flights and around the country, and always attracting large crowds. But there was a tragedy in the north, and one of the youngsters who was holding to the anchor rope, the balloon sort of took off prematurely. The chap, I don't know, must have got caught up in the anchor rope. The anchor rope broke. The chap fell from the sky and was killed, and Lunardi got the blame, and after being a great hero, of course, nobody wanted to speak to him anymore after that, although it wasn't really his fault. But there you are. So if we have another field trip, we'll get to see the other Lunardi stone, which is far more impressive. I've seen it. Oh, well, I won't bother with that.